In this video, we're going to be going over Chapter 14, Developing and Pricing the Goods and Services. Last chapter, we talked about the marketing aspect. Now we're going to get into what do we need to do to actually develop our goods and how do we price them. So, key things we're going to be going over are the product development process and the differentiation. What does that really mean? Packaging, branding, the development process, and the life cycle. And how do we price our products so that we can make a profit? When you think about it, when you buy something, the primary thing that you're looking for is value. We want value for the products that we're buying and the money that we're spending. And in order to get that, we may be shopping around, and companies will try to provide and show you, here's the value that you get from purchasing our product. Now, there's some things that people won't give up, all right, because they get so much value from them, like your cell phone, all right, your cable, discount apparel. It's amazing how cheap clothing has become. There are some things that people won't give up. However, there are things that people will give up fairly readily. Things like luxury handbags or satellite radio. We figure out that we're not necessarily getting the value that we want for the price that we're paying. In product development, you may do distributed product development. In other words, what you're doing is you're having different companies actually help you with your innovation and development process. And a lot of it's all going to companies overseas because of the cost that goes along with it. In the development process, you want to be thinking about the total product offer that you're providing to the consumer. Because when we are buying something, we're looking at everything that goes along with it, both the tangible and intangible dimensions that go along with the use of something. So we're looking at that total product offer and thinking, okay, the money that I'm spending, am I getting the value that I'm really looking for? One of the ways that companies will try to provide value is adding features. There's a ton of competition right now in the smartphone market as far as adding new and upgraded features to their products. In that total product offer, people are looking at a lot of things. You may have the brand name. They're looking at the price. They're looking at the packaging, how things actually come to them, and the convenience that goes along with it. So there's a lot that goes into that product offer that we can think about that may give us a leg up as far as our product is concerned. Companies will have different product lines. So for example, Coca-Cola, has different flavors. And so these are all part of their product line of sodas. You can also have a product mix. So for example, P&G, Procter & Gamble, has a product mix of a lot of consumable types of things that go more along the lines of convenience and some necessary types of things. One of the things that we're really trying to do with our product and with our marketing is provide differentiation. In other words, how are we creating some sort of differences between us and the consumer and the competition? There are a lot of classes of consumer goods. So for example, you have convenience goods and services. Okay, you go to the grocery store and on the end caps or at the cash registers, they have all kinds of candy and snacks and things like this. Things a lot of times you just buy on a whim. And so those are kind of those convenience goods. You also have things like gas and milk. In other words, those are things that we typically buy very regularly. We start looking for those. It's just a convenience as far as what some of the things we're needing. Then you have your shopping goods and services. So example might be different computers, or you're thinking about a new pair of jeans. You might shop around for what it is that you're looking for so that you're comparing that value, the quality, price, and the style that goes along with those different types of goods. And then you have your specialty goods, things that people will spend more money for because they feel that there is not another substitute that goes along with it. things like fine watches and expensive wine. People will spend more money for those because they are looking for something that is very different than what they could get otherwise. Then you have your unsought goods and services. Nobody wants to have their car break down. So you're not going to be out looking for car towing services. Nobody wants to die. So you're not going to be looking for funeral homes and shopping around for things like that. So there are some things that we don't even look for until we absolutely positively have to have it. You also have your industrial goods. In other words, if you are selling equipment to other companies so that they can make their products. Packaging is very important when it comes to how you are differentiating your product from something else. How it looks, how it actually works, really can make a difference as far as whether somebody chooses to buy your product or not. Some of the examples that came out as far as changing the packaging, the squeezable ketchup bottles. Instead of having a glass bottle that you had to turn upside down and shake, you now have something that's squeezable, makes it much easier. Single-use spice packets. You go to a fast food restaurant and it has single-use sugar packets or salt or pepper. The packaging can make a difference. The key functions of packaging is to get people's attention and protect the goods that they have inside. When I was at Hallmark, think about Hallmark ornaments. You have a ball ornament, and we had artists and designers and engineers who were actually putting together the box that ornament would come in, where the ball ornament is actually being shown through the windows within the cardboard packaging, and it's folded certain ways, and it's tacked down in certain areas, and it has a really nice picture and the Hallmark logo and things like this on there. The packaging can make a difference. And many times what will happen is companies will bundle different packages. So for example, just recently I bought a new wireless mouse. I could have bought the wireless mouse bundled with a mouse pad. So many times what they'll do is they'll bundle some things like that. Number one, to increase sales. Number two, to provide convenience and value as far as their products are concerned. A key thing that you have to protect is your brand. Your brand can be very, very important as far as the sales that you have. You trademark that brand and the logo to keep anybody else from using that brand or that logo. The reason is because of the value that goes along with the brand itself. For example, Amazon, WD-40. Now, this is interesting. The way the name came up with that, the first 39 attempts were BUS. Okay, it was the 40th attempt that actually worked. All right, so they came up with WD-40 as far as the name is concerned. So the brands are very important as far as what it is that you're doing, particularly the manufacturer's brands. So you go to the grocery store and you have Heinz ketchup, you have Lay's potato chips. Those brand names are very important because they're known nationally. Then you have your dealer brand. So for example, you go to Price Chopper and they have Best Choice. That's the Price Chopper dealer brand that you can purchase. It's a little bit cheaper than your manufacturer brand. Then you have generic goods. In other words, it doesn't matter where it's coming from or what it is, it's basically the same. And it will be sold at a sizable discount compared to the other types of brands. Then you have the illegal aspect, okay, the knockoffs. In other words, the watches that really aren't the expensive watches. Companies will protect their brands for everything they can. And the reason is because of the equity or the value of that brand name. Because many times that brand name provides a lot of loyalty that goes along with purchasing that item. So for example, Apple. People are loyal to Apple. All right, you have the Apple fanboys and fangirls who will line up at an Apple store when the new iPhone is coming out. Very loyal to that brand. And the most valuable brands several years ago If you look at this, the top 5 of the top 6 are technology. Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Amazon. It's really kind of interesting. And they protect those brands and the logos and the things that go along with it for everything they can. The brand can actually provide an awareness as far as what the company and what the products are really all about, so that people will have a preference as far as what it is that they buy. So for example, I know people who will buy nothing but Nike shoes. That is where they have an insistence as far as, if I'm going to buy some shoes, it's going to be just Nike. They're not going to accept substitutes that go along with those. Then you also have the brand association. In other words, we may associate a particular brand with other brands. So for example, that's why grocery stores will have the sodas near the chips, because there's going to be some sort of association that goes with that. And you have a brand manager, somebody who is responsible for really managing, and they have direct responsibility for protecting and marketing that particular brand. In your new product development process, you're going to have screening and analysis. What you want to do is not have too many products that are in development at any one point in time. You're spreading yourself too thin. And in the analysis aspect means that you're doing some estimates and forecasts as far as, okay, how well will this item sell? When you're bringing out a new product, bring it out slowly for the most part. Now, an exception. When I was at Hallmark Cards, we had a group of people who went off-site. They were artists, there were designers, there was manufacturing that was set up in a completely different site. Everything was done in secret. All of a sudden, on a particular date, and it was about a year after everything went off-site, about a year after that, on a particular date, they came out with something like 32 feet of shoebox. They went and completely did something totally different with shoebox cars. They kind of set up a little brand within the Hallmark brand. And they came out with a big splash as far as that kind of sub-brand at Hallmark. And it sold like wildfire. When you're thinking about a new product designed for a single function, pick one thing that you can do well and then do it the very best that you can. Really think about how you can package it so that it does protect your product and it attracts attention. And it would be great if what you have can be a status symbol, where people will show off what it is that they're wearing with their new watch or something along those lines. In your development, you also need to make sure that you're testing the concept. If it's something that's totally brand new, what are you doing to test it to find out what's happening there? And then what you want to do when you are bringing it out, you want to commercialize it. In other words, think about the promotion and the advertising that you're doing to let folks know about your brand and your product. And it's really kind of interesting, some of the different things that people will do as far as their brands and their products. So for example, Prisma Guitars started making guitars out of old skateboards. That's really kind of interesting. I mean, here's a Fender Telecaster and a Fender Jazzmaster that were set up as where the bodies were actually created from old skateboard decks. Yeah, I play guitars. I actually have a Telecaster. Every product will have a life cycle. It's just like a human. You're going to have a life cycle of introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. And they kind of look like this, where you're looking at your sales through the various cycles and the profits that go along with it. In the introduction cycle, you're not going to be selling as much and you're not going to have much in the way of profit. During the growth phase, you're going to have sales that go up quite a bit, while your costs are also going to be going, or your profit is also going to be going up. Then what happens is your product starts to mature. In other words, you're getting more and more of those things out there. The number of people who have it are more, so the number that are not being serviced by that are less. And your sales start to drop off. And the reason is because you're having more competition out there. You're also filling the market up with it, and so your profits are actually going to drop because you're going to be competing more on price. Then you have your decline, where your sales are dropping off like crazy, and so is your profit. And this is an example, and here's some ideas as far as companies and products that are within those. All electric cars are still in the introduction phase. They're not really selling a whole lot right now, but hybrid cars are selling more. You can see that the sales of that are really going up. However, smartphones starting to mature. And so what's happening is there's more and more competition out there. There's more and more competing on price, and profits are dropping. Eventually, you're going to have a decline. This is why companies need to keep innovating and coming up with newer, improved products, so that when you have your product hitting this maturity phase, you're bringing out a new product or changes in your product so that you can take that to kind of the next level. The various strategies that you might use in each of those life cycle stages, things like for the price in the introduction, you want to go after the innovators with a high price where you're skimming. With growth, you're adjusting your price to meet the competition. You're still keeping it kind of high. During maturity, you're really starting to reduce your price and your profits that go along with it. You're still trying to fill the market that goes along with that. The various stages, okay, when you think about sales and profits and the number of competitors. In the introduction phase, low sales, you may have some losses, and you don't have much in the way of competitors. As you go through that life cycle, you get more and more competitors out there and declining profits that go along with it. In your pricing, you want to be competitive and really trying to think through the pricing aspect. It can be tricky as far as how do we actually set the price. We have to be thinking about what is the vision that people have? What is it that they see as value? You want to make sure that you're making profits and you're starting to build traffic for your new item and creating an image. Different types of pricing. You can do cost-based. A lot of times that happens like in the building industry. In other words, okay, this is what it's going to cost us, and we're going to add another 10% as far as profit is concerned. You might have demand-based. In other words, okay, so what is it that people are going to pay for this product in the market? Competition-based. In other words, okay, we're going to meet or beat any of our competitors' prices. And then you might have price leadership. For example, Quick Trip. Where I live, there's a Quick Trip on one side of the road and a Phillips 66 on the other. Quick Trip is the price leader when it comes to gasoline. Because what happens is they're going to drop their price first, and they force the Phillips 66 to do the same thing. However, the products that they have on the inside, which is where they make all their money, are priced much higher than they are at the Phillips 66. In your pricing, you want to make sure that you're clear as far as where your break-even is at. You will have fixed costs. No matter how much you make, you're going to have a certain level of cost that goes along with it. Things like you still have to pay the same amount of rent, things like this. Then you have your variable costs. Your variable costs are basically for every item that you produce, you're going to have certain costs that go with it. So if you're making widgets, you're going to have supply costs, you're going to have material costs, you're going to have labor costs that go along with it. The more you make, the more the total costs are. So you have to set your sales and your revenue at a certain point where you can start making money. Where you break even, where your revenue equals your total cost, you want to make sure that you're pricing above that so that you can make some profits. Now, there may be times and situations where a majority of your products, the ones that sell really well, you keep pricing like in this level here. However, you may have a loss leader to get people in the store. You may be losing money on a particular item, but you're making a heck of a lot more out here. That's one of the things that Quick Trip does. They will sell gasoline where they almost might be losing money on it. That gets people into the store where they're selling the stuff and making all their money here. A skimming price strategy is when you have a new product that you're bringing out, and what you're doing is you keep it high to try to get as much in the way of sales and profit as possible. For example, when PCs first came out, over 25 years ago, I bought my first PC. It was an IBM PC. It could do about 10% of what my current computer will do now. And I paid $800 for it, used. The computer I have now, I built for $200. It screams. You could have a penetration strategy as far as your pricing is concerned. You price it real low to bring people in to get used to your product and get that brand loyalty going, and it discourages the competition. Or you may have like everyday low pricing, like what Walmart does. They have all of their prices very low, and what they're doing is they're looking for turn and selling a lot of those things, and that's where they make their money. You may also have what's called a high-low pricing strategy. In other words, your normal prices are higher than your competition's, but you run a lot of sales, and the sale prices are lower than the competitors. And then you have your psychological pricing. In other words, setting it at price points where it makes the product appear less expensive than it really is. And then you have your non-price competition. In other words, you're looking at what kind of image does my product provide? What kind of comfort or convenience does it provide? That may be some of the key things that you're pushing in your marketing as far as selling your product. Those are some of the key points from the chapter. If you have questions, give me a shout.